Hello, viewers. Welcome to the part 2 of our discussion with Mazi Chinedu Ogbonna, a staff of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, Maritime Environment Management Department. Our theme is, as we said before, pollution prevention in the maritime ecosystem. Let's talk about coral reefs. Coral reefs. I know the coral reefs are part of the ocean system. How do we prevent pollution in that space? Because the coral reefs has a lot to do with the marine life, I suppose. So what do we do? How do we protect it?
Well, like you said, coral reef, it has this diverse range of it's usually it provides a source of tourism for some countries, who know, and they use it to protect endangered species. Some endangered species habit in the coral reefs. Yeah. So one of the major methods, one of the well-known methods that are being employed in the protection of the coral reef pretty much is what we call marine spatial planning. It deals with designating certain areas within the water space that you do not permit anthropogenic activities. What are these anthropogenic activities we're talking about? We're talking about human activities, the day-to-day movement within that area, because there are so many types of pollution. It's not just only the introduction of what's it called?
Waste and all of that.
Waste and all of that. There's something called noise pollution, underwater noise pollution. So when these vessels are also
going
passing through and
vibrations,
the roller blades are vibrating too much there, you would scare that ecosystem of aquatic life.
They are used to a particular standard.
Yeah.
So the vibration is introducing something different.
So when they run away from that area, because due to the vibrations, they actually may run into the hands of predators today. Predators in the sea, which may eat them up and deplete their numbers and all that. So that's one of the key ways to protect when you now designate that place as what we call today marine protected areas. So those areas, you need a permit to be able to access those areas. So most countries, developed countries, cut those places out.
Just like the UNESCO does a lot of protection of sites and all of that across the world. So there's a protection of certain spaces within
the water body.
Yeah.
So those places are designated as marine protected areas using marine spatial planning. Over time, anthropogenic activities are limited there, limited, so that you do not offset it. Because see, when the downside to it that people don't know is that when you offset the balance there in that coral reef, you could restrict light. The sunlight does a lot for the marine ecosystem. You could restrict light and oxygen exchange within that space, which gives pathogens. So pathogens basically are like what you call infectious microorganisms or agents. You give pathogens. So these organisms like viruses, bacteria, fungi. So those you give them that foothold. Which makes for invasion.
For them to thrive.
Yeah, they thrive, and which brings in about diseases and all whatnot for the aquatic life within that space, for what we call the biodiversity there. So when you introduce those things, you kill the oxygen, you disrupt a whole lot. You kill endangered species, which obviously you can't bring them back again. You can't. All these things were created by God. You make them vulnerable to diseases, and again, when you do these things, you could lead to ocean warming. I don't know if I've ever mentioned ocean warming here, but
let's talk about it.
Ocean warming is with regards to the
global warming.
Yeah, the climate change. So it's where the sea takes up a whole lot of the greenhouse gas emissions. then it heats up the water body itself, and that water body
has a certain temperature. It should remain.
Yeah, it shouldn't. So sometimes, just like we talked about it, like I only use its impact on the coral reef itself. I don't even want to go to the human alone. When you could cause something we refer to as coral bleaching. Now, so this room where we are is being cooled by the air conditioning system. Then take, for instance, light goes away and the air conditioning system is no longer working, and the temperature outside is excruciating.
Yeah, that would be terrible.
You will no longer be able to
can't be
stay
comfortable.
here if there is no ventilation, any windows coming in. You would run out. So that's exactly what coral bleaching is, and it brings about loss.
So you're literally changing the temperature.
You're just changing.
Of the ideal temperature of what that environment should be.
Environment should be.
Interesting.
So ocean warming goes a long way and even affects humans in general, because you heat up the globe itself, because the water is moving and it's carrying.
The water also emits a lot of the oxygen.
Yes.
That's
so you're carrying heat from one side of the equator to the other side of the equator, and it's giving a balance. When it carries water from one side of the equator to the other side, but when it's not doing what it should do, one side is concentrated with heat.
Talking about humans, how does pollution in the marine environment affects humans? Particularly, let's discuss about those, because there are people that depend on the marine, the ocean, for their livelihood. Even in Lagos here, being a coastal community, you find out that a lot of people live and function within that space. How does marine pollution? Because we need to tell our viewers so that they know that whatever harm you create in that space not only affects the marine bodies, the fishes, and all of that, it tends to affect human beings that function and derive their livelihood from the maritime space. So how does marine pollution come in there?
Fantastic question, Chukwuma. Listen, it's something I like to describe as food chain web. What is food chain web in shortest form? These pollutants make their way into the ocean. Smaller organisms ingest them. Larger predators
ingest the smaller
organisms. Then we humans go fishing and pick up these larger predators and ingest them. Now we have introduced those same toxins that had been eaten up by the initial smaller organism. What has it just made? What has it just done for us? It has just made our system exposed to all manner of toxins, all manner of anything can happen. In fact, it could be cancerous in the long run. So just think about this logically. Imagine consuming grilled barbecue fish that had been soaked up in oil for a long time. That had ingested oil for a while. That's just literally what it is.
So which means the rise in the diseases and the things we face in the modern days is not far-fetched.
It's not far. So it's that thing what I call food chain web. It finds its way into the human life, and it's bad for public health. It's bad for public health. Also, that's one of the basic aspects. That's literally one of the basic aspects. So we also want to look at another side, which is, like you asked, livelihood. How does it affect the livelihood? Some people go fishing and not just get fish, they get all manners of seafood. Not necessarily for their own consumption, to be able to sell. For business, for trade. So they want to sell these things out there, get the monies, so they could probably send the children to school, they could send,
improve their livelihood.
Improve their own, their lifestyle and livelihood. So when you introduce pollutants, you sort of deplete those organisms, because you're killing them off and they're dying off. Now, the man who is living in the coastal community comes to fish, or comes to, get if it's, prawns or crabs or all that, and there is none. If not, they're dead. They've actually moved away from there because that ecosystem is no longer habitable.
Migrate.
It's not exactly. It's no longer habitable. So they find somewhere else. Now the man is forced to look for another means of livelihood. What he's used to is no longer
He might even get the little ones he might see that are in poor qualities,
exactly,
and still get to do his business.
So it's that bad. So it affects us in diverse ways, and really want to. We really should take that into consideration, especially for the coastal communities
that depend on
that,
on the maritime, the waterways, the water bodies for their own livelihood.
Right.
So which means that whatever pollution that comes into the water, in one way or the other, gets back to us. It affects us in diverse ways we can't even speak about. What strategies are being employed by NIMASA, particularly to curb all of these pollutions in our waterways and to protect our marine ecosystem, as well as mentioning about the communities and the livelihoods of these people? So what is NIMASA doing to ensure there's protection of these people like their livelihood over there, and how they go about their businesses, and to ensure that there's sustainability?
The agency, in all honesty, the agency has done a lot, and is still doing. It's still doing. Yesteryears, right? The agency engaged youths of coastal communities in a scheme or program known as the Marine Litter Marshals and the Supervisor Marshals. They were supposed to act as watchkeepers of the coastal communities, and they were tasked with the responsibilities of even being whistleblowers. So when some of these industries come to their communities to dump their waste into the sea, they come back and give us feedback or information. Such
this is what's going on.
Exactly. So they were engaged for a period of time. I think within the period of maybe between 2018 and 2020. I'm not sure of the date, but it was within this period of time, between 2018 and 2020. So these are across the
country.
The country, yes. Marine Litter Marshals were engaged. They were paid stipends by the agency, which in turn you have one way or the other put food on the table of somebody.
Employ the youth.
You've employed the youth, by extension. So NIMASA did that at the time. NIMASA always, NIMASA used to carry out this activity known as marine litter cleanup or marine debris cleanup. Every year.
Okay, I was about to ask how often.
Yeah, every year, annually.
Okay.
It's outsourced to people with the right capacity to have all the equipment that they need, both mechanical and human element of it. They deploy their equipment out there and clean up the seas, rid the seas of these debris and all that. Also, NIMASA used to engage in the cleanup of water hyacinth from the seas as well.
I think I was fortunate to go on one of that
annually.
One of that
as well, and most especially one of the key things that NIMASA is tasked to do to protect that NIMASA is doing to protect the marine environment actually is the implementation and the enforcement of the relevant legal framework, because that is the most important. Paramount. That is the most important. They need to implement that legal framework, which relates to the protection of the marine environment. And there are so many of them. You have like the Ballast Water Management Convention to implement. You have the Anti-Fouling Systems Convention to implement. There's even one called the London Convention and its protocol, which completely prohibits the dumping of any waste into the sea.
Any foreign body,
exactly. But the protocol now gives room allows for certain things to be dropped. But
there's always a but.
It's not like you can just dump it. It allows for, but it has to be on something known as the reverse list. It's a whole big topic on its own.
Things that would now be of an advantage.
Yes.
To the bodies, to the water bodies.
You don't just go and So
there are specifications.
So the agency implements these relevant conventions. That is the first and primary thing that the agency does. Over time, in more recent times, one of the fantastic things the management of the agency has been able to do is the provision of offshore waste reception facility. It is our core mandate that we provide some sort of platform to collect waste from users of our maritime domain in the deep waters. So, you have some vessels that are very, very big that may not be able to berth at our ports today and all that. So we have to have some sort of platform that reaches out to them to collect their waste. So it is NIMASA's mandate to provide that. So NIMASA provides that offshore waste reception facility, because no matter how it happens, once these vessels come into our water space, they pay for it.
Yeah.
They are mandated to pay for it. So even all these oil rigs and all whatnot, platforms, FPSOs, FSOs that are out there, where's their waste going to? Somebody has to pick it up, because by the time it accumulates so much, it starts to bring about,
threats and
diseases and all that for them. They will have another option when no one is looking.
dispose it.
They'll dispose it into the sea. So NIMASA provided that offshore waste reception facility in the 3 maritime zones, the western, the eastern, and this commenced recently on the 1st of March of this year. And that has been going on fantastically well. NIMASA also ensures the adequacy and usage. You need to take note of these 2 words: the adequacy and usage of something we refer to as the port reception facility, provided by the NPA, Nigerian Ports Authority. So when ships berth at the port and discharge whatever goods it is they are carrying, or they are taking up goods they want to take out, most of the time they are advised to, discharge the waste they have on board, so that they do not accumulate more.
Yeah, they go light.
Exactly. Or even when they embark on the voyage, they do not take up more, which becomes a threat to their own life on the vessel in the course of their journey. So they discharge this waste in things known as reception facilities.
Okay.
But because it's at the port, it now becomes the task of the Nigerian Ports Authority to provide for that
waste
facility that receives it. So it is known as a port reception facility, right? So, but NIMASA, because we are reporting to a higher body, which is the International Maritime Organization, right? We have to go and ensure that it is, first and foremost, that port reception facility is available.
Yeah.
NPA has provided. That's one. 2, it is functional.
Very important.
Very important.
Because it could be there and not functional. Yeah.
Now, it could be there, it could be functional, but not adequate to serve the amount of vessels that call the port.
Yeah, the load.
Yes. Because they are supposed to take this waste without having to cause any form of undue delay to vessels, because time is money for vessels. It should be swift. Take, move, and all that. You're not causing any undue delay, because when the vessel has a downtime, it has its cost effect somewhere in someone's pocket eventually. So we're also looking to ensure that it's adequate to gather as much waste as many vessels that come calling at our airports. Then again, something could be provided, it could be functional, but it may not be in use. It could just be there lying fallow. So that's why I say take note of the 2 words. It's adequacy and usage. So we go there to carry out what we call quarterly inspections in a tripartite team consisting of officers from the Ministry of the Marine and Blue Economy, officers from the agency, from the Marine Environment Management Department, as well as officers from NPA. We all come together to go and inspect the port reception facilities.
To ensure all of this is in place, the adequacy, the functionality, and its usage.
Yes. So I've given you a whole list of things that NIMASA carries out. And in fact, there's one I didn't even mention. In the course of those water hyacinth cleanup and marine litter cleanup that NIMASA annually carries out, NIMASA actually, in the course of doing that, NIMASA actually carries out what we call sensitization or awareness programs in those coastal communities. They try to talk people into understanding what irresponsible waste management could actually cost not just the entire nation, but them as coastal community dwellers. We try to educate them. You try to bring them up to global best practices where they can, on their own, dispose of their waste in an environmentally sound manner without having to pollute the environment. So NIMASA does a whole lot.
Because knowledge is constant.
Yes.
So, what you knew yesterday might not be the same thing today. So it's always very key to keep updating people within that environment of the knowledge. It's very good NIMASA does that sensitization to keep them updated on global best practices on how to dispose waste and all of that. So let's go to a personal note, a more personal note.
Right.
It's said that everything you do, you get to do the best of it when you find some level of fulfillment, when you're happy doing what you do. What are the highs? What are the high points of your job? Do you enjoy it? Do you find fulfillment? And let's end by an advice to the listeners of today's show. What would you say they should do to aid NIMASA in achieving a protected and pollution-free ecosystem?
Thank you very much. So, the high points of my job, I can't even explain. So, for me, it's the adventure within it. It's, first and foremost, I'd like to first state that I'm an environmental enthusiast. I have a master's degree in environmental biotechnology from the University of Westminster in the UK. So, naturally, I'm an environmental enthusiast. But having to be in the open waters, north, south, east, west, no land, and you are carrying out an environmental, what I want to call it, like inspection or something in the open waters, the open seas. It's, for me, it's breathtaking. I can't even explain. It's not something I can explain to anyone. You just need to experience it for yourself, And trust me, that's the high point for me. That's the high point. The offshore waste collection, when we go to enforce that or inspect that or enforce it, when you see how it's being done in the environmentally friendly manner, when waste is being collected without any pollution, form of pollution, it's awesome.
It's like a fulfillment of the theoretical aspect of
fantastic
what your knowledge is.
So really and truly, you get that fulfillment that you're talking about. There's that fulfillment of the efforts I've been putting in over time, from the trainings I may have received from the agency. You're even prepared for anything. Like recently, people were trained for BOSIET and all that, which is the certification that allows you to board offshore platforms. The BOSIET training is the basic offshore standards induction and emergency training. So that's it. So it tells you, even educates you on what to do when you find yourself in any sort of emergency offshore. So your mind is going wild in that space where you are thinking, okay, what if there's a fire? Okay, what if this happens? What if that happens? You're looking to put into practice.
Getting your mind
nobody's
prepared.
praying for any sort of accident.
But you must be ready.
You must just be ready. So those are the high points. The adrenaline rush, it gives you. So yes, and yes, 3 times. I get fulfillment in my job. And you asked, what would be my best advice to the general public? Firstly, there are a few things. We can do to change our daily routine towards. So first, I like to start with, as individuals, as you and I, because if anything has to change, it has to,
mindset.
It has to start
individual
with you. So as individuals, we have to learn we have to change our ways in waste disposal, waste management. We should know and start practicing appropriate waste disposal. Using waste, what's it called? Waste segregation methods. Like, this is plastic. Put plastic in the plastic trash.
Interesting.
This is glass. Put glass in this.
Where it should be.
This is food waste.
Not dumping everything together.
And not just tossing it on the roadside, because it will find itself into the sewage system, and when there's a wash off or runoff, it finds its way back into the ocean. So proper waste disposal for the waste collectors to come and collect and dispose of normally. 2, for the manufacturers, like I said, we're in the industrial revolution and all that. For manufacturers and stuff, because everybody, when they manufacture whatever it is, it comes in a package form. So there is that styrofoam, there is all that thing, plastics and all that. So there are all those things put to package whatever item that is being manufactured, so that it doesn't, when it hits the floor, it doesn't break before it gets to the hands of the end user and all that, or even to the food we eat, the water we drink from cups and all that. So my advice would be to manufacturers of things, you should be looking to opt for biodegradable materials or recyclable materials. Don't just throw random plastic, because these things take time to break in the water body. So, and now for the farmers and the agricultural sector, it's just so funny, because they want their crops to grow quickly, so they're looking for those synthetic chemicals, synthetic fertilizers they can just throw in. But my best advice would be reduce the use of chemical fertilizers, reduce the use for organic ones, such that if they find their way into the ocean or the water,
still part of
it forms food for the smaller microorganisms, which eventually gets ingested by the bigger ones and gives them even growth, and is good by the time they, humans get to, ingest consume it. It's not harmful to the body. So you're looking to that. And in all in all, my best advice to everyone out there will be attitudinal change towards waste management. Let's all have attitudinal change towards waste management, because waste management actually starts with you as an individual before it progresses to the waste collectors and to the regulators and all whatnot. Attitudinal change towards waste management.
Thank you very much, Mazi. It was quite an interesting one, sharing your knowledge.
Thank you.
And letting our viewers understand certain things that need to be done to ensure the protection of our maritime ecosystem.
Right.
I hope you enjoyed the show. You can watch this episode again on our social media platforms at NIMASA Official and The Maritime Odyssey by NIMASA. And please don't forget to subscribe. That will be all for today. Bye.